China's biggest and most important political event of the year wraps up in Beijing. What are the key takeaways? Hello, I'm Mike Walter sitting in for Anna Naidu, and this is The Heat. On Monday, Chinese officials and lawmakers closed out the two sessions after more than a week of meetings and deliberations. Those policy decisions will now serve as the country's blueprint moving forward. CGTN's Feng Yilei has this report from Beijing.
After voting on all draft resolutions, the two sessions set an ambitious agenda for the world's second largest economy in 2024. Key targets announced include around 5% GDP growth, over 12 million new urban jobs, and 650 million tons of grain output. This year marks the 75th anniversary of founding to the nation, as well as a critical year of the 14th five-year plan to reach the economic development goals. President Xi Jinping and other Chinese leaders attended the closed meeting at the Great Hall of the People. Zhao Leji, chairman of China's top legislature's standing committee, delivers a speech at the closing meeting.
During the conference, our deputies have bared the trust and responsibilities of the party and the people. They have performed their duty in high spirit. They have deliberated and reviewed the proposals of various types. The result of this meeting has fully demonstrated the alliance of the will of the party and the will of the people. It's also showcased the advantage of the whole process people's democracy and China's fundamental political system.
Thousands of delegates from across the country put forward nearly 300 bills and over 7,000 suggestions, with a focus on propelling China's high-quality development, covering areas like deepening reforms, improving people's livelihoods. There was a keen focus on the need to boost self-reliance in core technologies through innovation while upgrading traditional industries.
We must follow the people-centered development approach and practice the whole process, people's democracy, respect people's will, their experience and their rights, and also utilize their innovation and mobilize the whole society in engaging in entrepreneurship and innovation, and mobilize our resources and strengths to march ahead.
Upbeat yet pragmatic, that seems to be the overriding spirit of this year's two sessions. Despite complex global challenges, China has expressed strong resolve to forge ahead on a path of modernization through reform, innovation, and greater opening up. And that confidence is expected to help uphold global stability and prosperity. Wang, CGTN, Beijing.
To continue our conversation, let's bring in our panel. Joining us from Beijing, Einar Tangen is a senior fellow at the Taihe Institute, and he's chairman of Asian Narratives. We also have Gong. He's a professor at the University of International Business and Economics and a China Forum expert. Out of Maryland, Sourabh Gupta is a senior Asia-Pacific International Relations Policy Specialist at the Institute for China-America Studies, and Dr. Huiyao is the founder and president of the Center for China and Globalization. And Dr. Wang, why don't I start with you? As the reporter mentioned, this is an ambitious agenda. I think if you're going to summarize, Chinese President Xi Jinping has a message, and it's basically the country's going to focus on high-quality development, specifically through what's being described as new quality productive forces. They're going to deepen overall reforms. There's going to be an effort at common prosperity, economic protection, and coordinated regional development. That's just a short summary. I'd like to see if you think that's right, if you want to kind of amplify on that. And what do you think are the core messages coming out of Beijing?
Well, thank you. I think this is actually a very important conference. Of course, probably the most important political season in China, where you gathered almost 5,000 delegates from both NPC and CPPCC, and about 10 days in Beijing, 8 days, and goes through all the agendas, suggestions, recommendations. But I think this is also a process of in building up consensus and also rally the morale. But also, I think it's important to at this beginning of the Dragon of the Year to get new directions. I mean, you're absolutely right. You summarized quite well. I mean, the new quality of a productive forces is the new, I think, paradigm shift probably China is singling out at this juncture of the 75 years of the country, because for the opening up in the first 10 years, 80s and 90s, we probably used 700 million shirts to change for Boeing 747, right? Now you have the new EV cars and the new batteries and new solar panels and all those things. But on top of that, China has become greener and also cleaner, and then that's, I think, the message wants to people, the Congress wants to send, that China wants to get more steamed up on the innovation, on the productivity, on the technological advancement, but also, China has actually the critical mass and the synergy is getting there. We have 1.4 billion people, 1.1 billion smartphone users, 70% of the 5G system in the world, and also 2/3 of global speed railway network. So that all combined, plus another 11, 12 million graduates freshly out of college every year. So I think that synergy, combined with changing environment of international geopolitical, so China has to do its own homework well, has to become a cornerstone of the global economy, has to contribute more stability, prosperity into the world, and has to work with all the countries together. So I think this important that political season gathers so many delegates together to deliberate is really a great way to demonstrate China's democracy process. I think that works well.
Yeah, very interesting points there. Einar, as he said, cleaner and greener, obviously far more innovative as well. National lawmakers passed a number of resolutions. One is a revision of the amended organic law of the State Council that seems to be getting some press. How would you describe it, and what's the change there?
All right, well, I appreciate Henry's kind of summary of what happened. But, the main point here is that they wanted to instill confidence in the Chinese people. To do that, they needed to create a plan. The plan is innovation. They're going to grow their markets. They're going to make sure that their production is among the lowest cost in the world. And to accomplish all of these things, they've made changes to the State Council. There are about 20 articles that are there. The takeaway you should get from that is that they're changing the structure of the government because they've changed the emphasis of where the country is going. So unlike a lot of countries where you have old administrative bodies trying to figure out how they fit into the new priorities, in China, what they do is say, look, here are the priorities we now need to change the structure so that it's things. So, for instance, they've added the Bank of China as a part of the State Council. They put new entities and emphasized new entities: Ministry of Science and Tech, National Data Administration, National Intellectual Property Administration. 5% reduction in staff, although not specified when. People are saying over a 5-year period, and that'll be more organic than and then letting people go. It'll just be as they retire. So there's a lot of things in there that reflect, as I said, China's plan for the future.
And what about some of the other key decisions made during this week? As our reporter mentioned, there were other measures passed. Any key takeaways for you?
The key takeaway is that China has its innovation. When they start talking about new productive forces and things like that, you should automatically be thinking that China is trying to press on this area. Why? Because you can make more margin on those areas when you're leading, as opposed to doing commodities where you're just trying to producing. China's not giving up on production. And they will be moving forward. In terms of other administrative changes, as I said, it's just taking the whole body of things that you want to do, and then, as I said, making sure that the structure is capable and focused on doing that.
And John, of course, the Chinese economy always a topic of discussion whenever there's the two sessions. Everybody looking what's going to be the number, the magic number for the year ahead in terms of growth and that sort of thing. But interestingly enough, in January and February of this year, China saw its imports and exports reach 6.6 trillion yuan. That's about 930 billion US dollars. The Belt and Road projects, again, full steam ahead, exponential growth in partner countries. What does that tell us about the Chinese economy in the year ahead?
Well, first of all, exports and imports have always been sort of criticized as the next likely factor to drive China's decline, and it has been subject to this kind of skepticism and criticism for quite some time. And every time the data coming back and show that it's very resilient. And even last year, 2023, when world trade recedes by a quite significant amount, China's exports still increased by, I think it's 0.6%. And beginning of the 2 months of this year, it's a quite significant jump. So I have full faith in the competitiveness of China's export industries. Especially, when the central government is calling for exports gearing towards these new areas. We talk about this concept called new quality productive forces. What it really means, in my view, is as they are related to sunrise industries, in a sense. China's entire growth model is transforming itself, in my view, where I think to my two good friends previously have already said that it's going through a gigantic new paradigm change, in my view. In a sense, an old model relies on, the old manufacturing, the real estate property market development, infrastructure build out. All of these things are still happening, of course, but now we're talking about a growth model focused on innovation, focused on concentrating on these new rising technologies that you're very familiar with, I'm pretty sure, like AI, like robotics, these kind of things. So, people sometimes describe them as the new industrial revolution. China doesn't want to be left behind on this. I mean, they're investing heavily and ferociously on all these fronts. And also, very importantly, gearing towards the economy, towards a cleaner and greener future. That means that it's not just spending money addressing these environmental issues, but also Chinese companies are at the forefront of, investing and building technologies to address these global issues. It creates jobs, it creates a lot of economic opportunities. And these are the things we're talking about here. So I think the political event this week essentially sets the direction, builds consensus, and the entire country is behind it.
And Sourabh, let me ask you about, the fact that we talk about the delegates, about the people who attend this, but there's a whole nother contingent of people that arrive. A few years ago, I attended the two sessions, and I got to tell you, the lengthy line of journalists to get inside and to view this thing, I mean, it's also viewed by the international journalist community. Sean Caleb's traveled from Washington, D.C. to take in the two sessions. I want to play for you his observations about what he witnessed in the last week, and then I want to get your thoughts on the other side. Let's listen to Sean's report.
More than a week of pageantry, politics, and power. Even before the curtain came up on this year's two sessions, the media was given an insight into the proceedings. The National Committee of the CPPCC held a news conference a day before the formal opening of the two sessions and talked about the efforts to continue to modernize China.
The CPPCC will perform its duties, focusing on advancing the Chinese modernization, strengthening theoretical and political guidance, actively putting up proposals and recommendations, building extensive consensus, and enhancing our self-improvement so as to pool wisdom and strength for achieving the economic and social development targets of the year.
This was perhaps the most eagerly awaited of the public speeches, Premier Li Qiang's work report, a roadmap. From this report on new policies and amendments came the phrase for this year's two sessions, new quality productive forces. a shift from massive manufacturing efforts to innovative, high-quality production, a measure embraced by NPC delegates here, like Yin Chunye, the chairman of Shiri Automobile.
We believe that technology will be more important than ever at this time, and technological innovation is the biggest driving force for development.
For an outsider like me, it's a rare opportunity to follow the most important political meeting of the year of the world's second largest economy. And in this case, it meant asking Foreign Minister Wang about China's efforts toward diffusing tensions in Ukraine.
One strong impression we got at the recent Munich Security Conference is that as more and more people begin to worry about a possible lose-lose outcome, they're ready to create conditions to explore a way out of this crisis.
From a seat inside the Great Hall of the People to hearing from representatives from Hainan province about the island's importance to the country's economy, it was a chance to learn about China's political system. China dearly wants to improve consumption among its citizens, especially for big-ticket items. But leaders also want to knock down barriers and lure more international investment here.
I think the cross-border collaboration with all types of companies in and outside of China would help to continue to fuel the innovation system.
The government work report said China would remove all barriers for international companies who want to invest in manufacturing here, and at the same time remove most hurdles for healthcare, telecom, and other industries. China's two sessions remains a mystery to much of the outside world, including the United States, but it's an important part of how it develops policies and amendments that guide the nation. For an outsider looking in, a chance to knock down barriers. It also answers key questions like where China has been and where it's going. Sean Caleb, CGTN, Beijing.
Sourabh, I wanted to play that piece because it is important, the outsider's perspective, the international perspective on the two sessions. How do you think it's been viewed outside of Beijing?
It's still a little hard to say. Particularly in the Western world, you know, the way media has fragmented these days, that even many mainstream media in the West just capture snippets of it and are very consumed with matters back home. I mean, you think of a BBC, BBC is very internationalized, and yet the focus is not as much as it should be on China, and that is because of how mainstream press is fragmenting, let alone other folks who are in this area. But what Sean's report talks to is that this is a two-way process. China is second largest economy, one of the big global public goods providers, and is just going to become an even bigger global public goods provider. How its economy does has very important ramifications for every country, regionally and internationally. And reciprocally for China, this is an opportunity to send out messages clearly. In the last few years, there has been a little bit of mixed messaging with talk of security, talk of economics, which one has the priority. And I thought they got it absolutely right at this session in terms of what they wanted to communicate in terms of growth in the near term, technological innovation over the medium and long term, with that being a primary focus. So it was this both parties coming together and win-win, you would say, in terms of China getting across the messages it wanted to communicate to foreign investors, to the global community per se. And in that regard, I think Foreign Minister and Director Wang Yi's long press conference, the entirety of it is there available on the Chinese Foreign Ministry site, and that is good transparency. And reciprocally, of course, for outsiders, it's a window into how China operates, because two sessions, what is that? Folks tend to get intimidated, and this is a good way to give them a very good broad introduction of how China actually works.
Yeah, and Dr. Wang, it's such a good point about the transparency issue. I covered Wang Yi's press conference a few years back, and I think one of the first reporters he called on was CNN, you know, so it's a wide open, freewheeling news conference that goes for about 90 minutes. I mean, he answers a lot of questions there. One of the things that lawmakers did move on as well, they approved the central budget for 2024. Tell us how that budget might impact citizens in China this year.
Well, I think this exercise of budget planning and also put it on the table and deliberated by all the delegates is very important. Of course, I mean the budget is going to of course there's more stimulus plans actually built in this year, and also there is also government actually wants to put more bonds and more financing into the project that it's planning. But also they paid a lot of attention now to technological development, to the key livelihood of the people, and also of course the importance of the how we can get more R&D going and education and healthcare and all those things that are really dear at the hearts of the people. So I think this exercise is important because, we have such a big country, 1.4 billion people, and then you need the whole political season to deliberate, to discuss, and to really build a consensus on the focus, on the priorities of the sectors. So I think China is going through some challenges. Of course, its economy. Right. And some local government, probably have some challenges. But I think this is where exactly how things can be made out. Yeah. To do that. Yeah.
Right. And John, we keep hearing this term, new quality productive forces. That's a term that was coined by President Xi towards the end of 2023. Let's listen to the president of the Center for New Inclusive Asia, what he had to say about this.
Technology and innovation not only accelerate China's economic transformation, it also improves its total sector productivity and thus the development of new quality productive forces. This is vital to optimize and enhance China's position in the global industrial and value chain to sustain its long-term growth. Additionally, it promotes global technological development, leads global trends, fosters technological progress and application, and promotes international scientific and technological cooperation and global industrial upgrading, thereby helping to reduce the digital divide between the developing countries and advanced economies.
And John, that's pretty much what we're hearing. This is a roadmap to the future in a sense.
Absolutely. Well, incidentally, Professor Guo is my friend. Actually, I know him. He's from Malaysia. We should send a message to him afterwards. Anyway, I think what he said is absolutely right. This is very much based on innovation. I think that the important thing is that we have to look at this in the context of the grand competition between Washington and Beijing. I think we all understand that the core of this competition is all about technology and innovation. And in the last few years, China has been indeed subject to what we describe as the choke points imposed by Washington on several technology key areas. And it's really time to develop these things and not so much subject to outside control and to develop indigenous technology, stuff like that. And historically, in my view, that at some key historic junctures, China didn't do quite well, lagging behind, at least in the last 300 years, primarily because of this issue about technology development. And I think we don't want to repeat history again like this. So that's why so much emphasis on innovation, on developing what's described as new quality productive forces, stuff like that. And I think this time it might be different. I think this time, we have a clear sight, we have a clear understanding that it is vitally important. I mean, if you look at for example, if you look at the rapid development in AI, there's a legitimate concern about whether China is going to be left behind or not, right, vis-a-vis the United States. So I think, the country leadership understands that, and that's why they're coming up with this new perspective that we need to change.
It's so interesting you said that, because that leads to my next question, which is right about AI. You mentioned technology and innovation. Einar, I wanted to play a little sound from the Vice Chairman of the China Institute for Innovation and Development and get your thoughts on what he has to say about AI.
Artificial intelligence is a huge change to the imbalance and inequality in the traditional geographical distribution of intelligence. Intellectual resources are always lacking in underdeveloped areas. There are no good doctors, no good teachers, no good counselors. Artificial intelligence just makes up for the shortcoming. I believe another thing AI can bring to rural areas is education resources. For the exploration of human resources in rural areas, especially the exploration of talents, I estimate that AI may provide a new solution.
Einar, it's such a great food for thought, because you think of these remote regions in China. He says there's no good doctors, no good teachers, no good counselors. All of a sudden, AI can fill that gap, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's where the positive side is. They're obviously also concerned about the negative side, the fact that it's very hard to know what is real and factual versus what is being, basically created. But, Mike, I want to just kind of stand back a little bit and say, let's look at the system that we just witnessed. It was all about consensus versus other models, which are about conflict. In the United States, and the 4.2 billion people are going to be voting for new governments. But in almost every single instance, they talk about their differences, what is driving them apart. In China, it is about common values and goals. And the whole emphasis is creating this kind of consensus from very, very diverse views and trying to come up with something that people can agree on. So, this is the key, hopefully the key takeaway that people get from this is it's a different system. It works for China. China isn't saying that, anyone else should do this, but that's the basis of their system, creating consensus where others create conflict.
And Einar, one of the things you hear a lot is the 5-year plan. Here in the United States, it's an election every 2 years, which kind of throws off whatever plans there are.
Yeah, and this is the problem. Every 4 years, I mean, if Donald Trump was to get elected, maybe he may again withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord. He might undo a lot of things that were done during the Biden administration, which he didn't like when he took over from the Obama administration. I don't think that anybody would agree that a country can survive by seesawing between different policies. China has been very much plan-driven, and it has been very helpful to them. I mean, you're talking about a country that rose from nothing and is now the #2 power in the world.
Well, Einar, thank you so much. I want to thank all of our guests. Great discussion. We need to leave it right there. I'm Mike Wang from Washington, D.C. Thanks so much for watching another edition of The Heat.